Hi, I'm Xavier McFarlane, and welcome to the Catholic City podcast from the Mary Foundation. Today's episode features Joe Hopkins, the Director of Adult Formation for Mission in the Diocese of Nottingham, England. Joe spent 2 years in university ministry, then 8 years as a high school chaplain before taking on his current position, which includes young adult ministry among many other responsibilities. We discussed the challenge of restarting after pandemic lockdowns, Joe's role doing spade work, as he calls it, that is the logistical legwork required to make pretty much anything happen, the 4 critical ingredients in the recipe for starting a new young adult group, the importance of providing community opportunities for people after they quote-unquote age out of young adult years, and more. But first, if you want to learn more about Catholicism, or are looking for materials to evangelize family, friends, and fellow parishioners, please visit the Mary Foundation at Catholicity.com to order our Catholic scapulars, books, booklets, medals, and best-selling novels by Bud McFarlane. Sign up for Bud's Catholic City Message, where he's been sharing profound insights, sage advice, and crazy stories for over 25 years. We are also the world's largest distributor of the Purple Scapular, given by Mary to the approved French mystic Marie-Julie Jahenny in the late 1800s. You can learn more at our website, Catholicity.com. Hi, Joe. Thank you for being on. Welcome to the podcast. We're here with Anthony Mancini. He's the Director of Outreach for CatholicYoungAdultGroups.org. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for the invitation to both to come on this podcast. It really is an honor to join you from all the way across the Atlantic.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your ministry?
Absolutely. So my name is Joe. I'm the Director of Adult Formation for Mission for the Diocese of Nottingham, which is the East Midlands of England. So if you imagine a map of the UK, pretty much about a kind of blob to the right there. And my role includes a real collection of responsibilities, really. So I support parishes with evangelization, catechesis, discipleship, parish renewal, young adults, which we'll mainly speak about today. What else do I do? Men and women's ministry, and currently supporting a little bit with marriage and family life. I think that's everything this week anyway.
Wow, that's a lot of different hats.
Yeah, and it feels like I'm a hat stand more than anything else, I've got to say. Not quite sure what I'm talking about one day to the next.
So how did you get into this? And maybe most of our listeners are based on the North American continent. So like perhaps if there's differences in how things are set up, you could, although you probably wouldn't know what's different necessarily.
We talked about it a little.
Yeah, but why don't you just start with how'd you end up there? Like what got you into ministry?
Excellent question. So I'm a cradle Catholic. Both my parents are from Ireland. So very much Catholic faith in our family was the same of breathing or eating. You went to Mass the first Friday a month. You went to confession. There was no other way of doing things. Like I used to joke that our family at home had more religious art than the Vatican. And it was very funny when bringing back friends from school who weren't Catholic or anything like that, and just they're greeted by their Last Supper as soon as they walk into the house. So I had a fantastic upbringing of really being involved in my parish. I went off to university with the idea of being an actor or working in theatre or media and kind of the background of things. And God had other ideas for me altogether. So I tried to avoid getting involved with our kind of university chaplaincy because my brother had a strange experience at his university. I've just determined to find my local parish. And on my first day in university, I went to the chaplaincy centre to find out where the nearest parish was, and bumped into the Catholic chaplain who when I asked him where my nearest Catholic church was, he said, "I am your nearest Catholic church." And he's a fantastic guy, Father Julian Green. He really kind of challenged me to kind of go deeper and deeper into my faith, to think a little bit more and not just kind of give, oh, well, this is what Catholics are supposed to do, so I better do it, but actually love the faith, to really kind of make it based on my personal relationship with Christ. So by the end of my 3 years at university, I knew that I had no interest in being an actor anymore and the desire of fame. Actually, I had a big moment in the States. I came across for a a Focus conference, because we were looking to see if we could bring Focus to the UK at that time. And I went into a talk about life after graduation, and a thought popped into my head when I was thinking about, I had all these opportunities of kind of being able to go and do lighting at Glastonbury, like our big music festival in the UK. I had some work experience lined up on a TV show for the BBC. And I was thinking, like, I'm beginning to kind of get a name for myself. I've got opportunities. Like, would I miss out if I kind of gave more of my life, my career to Christ? And this thought popped into my head of going into this talk. If it's better to be known for a generation on earth or eternity in heaven? And I can't remember the rest of the talk, but the priest of giving the talk concluded again, if essentially is, if it's better to be known for a generation on earth or eternity in heaven? I was like, oh, God's given me a bit of a push here. So I then described of falling into a kind of a career in different ministry, really. That opportunities just suddenly started appearing, and people saying, I've seen this job, I think you'd be good going for it. And the Holy Spirit guided me to where he wanted me. So I had 2 years of university lay chaplain, and then about 8 years as a high school and elementary school, if you'd say, or we'd say secondary and primary chaplain, and then overseeing chaplaincy in schools for 25 schools across Derbyshire, which was great fun. And then this opportunity came to work for the diocese. And this, I remember when I left university, I came across the person who'd done this job before, and I was like, that looked like the most amazing job in the world. So when it came up, I thought, I'm way too young to be able to get this, but I'm going to apply for the experience. And then I couldn't believe it when they turned around and offered me the job. So one of the first things I was really keen on was developing a young adult ministry in the diocese. We had really strong school ministries. We had really strong kind of youth ministry coming from the diocese. We had a retreat centre that was full every weekend. But there was like when you got to 18, there was a cliff face. And you might not be, you might find a good university chaplaincy if you went to university. A lot of my friends didn't go to university, and you might be the odd one out in your parish. So one of the things I was really keen on was establishing a young adult ministry when I got going.
How long would you say your young adult ministry has been in existence? There wasn't, and just to be clear, there wasn't anything before you came in on the scene. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a couple of attempts when I was a school chaplain. A few of us tried to get things going, voluntary-wise, and some things worked. We had a couple of retreat days, but it was just the kind of the capacity of when, especially a couple of us were school chaplains, and we were given a lot during the day in kind of ministry, and then trying to then in an evening organise something that felt similar, and also trying to get out of the headspace of speaking to like 10-year-olds or 15-year-olds to actually speaking to fellow adults. So we had a few things, but it wasn't consistent. Just things would pop up and then they'd kind of fade off, or we'd have like a low turnout and we'd be kind of disgruntled and everything like that. So I felt now that I had this opportunity full-time working in adult formation, that to kind of just start with getting a group together. And I was very blessed that around the same time, we had 2 new vocations directors appointed for the diocese, and their primary focus, they felt, was to reach young adults and establish the idea and the kind of pulling out of, from Lumen Gentium, the first vocation, the call to holiness. And then from that, all the other particular vocations come. So it was pushing against an open door and having 2 priests who were madly interested in supporting me. So we decided to start basing out of the cathedral. And so that was 2 years ago in Nottingham, just having a monthly gathering where we had a time of prayer, a talk for formation, maybe sometimes the opportunity for question and answer afterwards, finishing with night prayer, and then going to a local pub for some social time. Well, we kind of scouted out some young adults we knew in the diocese to help be a bit of a kind of voluntary committee who kind of came up with the ideas of what they're looking for formation wise. And then we set to work booking speakers and organising things. We've had a couple of retreats. We're very blessed to have a wonderful Marian shrine in Walsingham. at one stage, back before the Reformation, it was after Rome and the Holy Land, it was the third biggest pilgrimage site in the world. So we've been there a few times, and we've also now spread to 2 more cities. So 3 Thursdays a month, we have the opportunity for young adults to gather together. We call it Christus Vivat, after the Pope's it's an exhortation on encyclical, apostolic exhortation on vocation, on discernment, on young people. We thought it was quite a good name to kind of Christ is alive and calling into idea of life. And we also wanted it as a space where people, regardless of their kind of spirituality or their stage in faith, could find of a home. So we have often praise and worship, but then we'll have night prayer as you'd expect from the book. We'll have sung benediction, so that no matter what people's particular spirituality or way of worship that really brings them close to Christ, they'd find that there in our evening.
That's incredibly organized. My hat's off to you. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I'm curious. You had mentioned that two priests were just ready to help. They in the early going. That's something that with Xavier and my ministry, I can't say it lacks completely, because we have a holy hour ourselves every week, and we're able to get a priest to come hear confessions and help out in that way. And I feel like if there's anything I'd choose for a priest to do out of everything that we do, it's to come hear confessions during our holy hour. But I'm curious, how much guidance does the clergy really give you, or do they just kind of sort of from their point of authority essentially give you their blessing, and it's just kind of a nice thing to say, have them around, or are they very active in your ministry, I guess is my question, versus just kind of like giving you space every once in a while and just kind of being there?
It's a great question. Definitely one thing that I kind of really was delighted about was that I felt there needed to be a kind of clerical presence, as you say, particularly often we find in parishes, sadly we find confession by appointment, which often means nobody makes an appointment.
Right.
Wherever if it's just free, if
that's
just
exactly
freely
what
available,
that means.
people come along because they can just turn up and know that there's a priest waiting for them at confessional. So we knew that was going to be a major element, even to a point. Actually, we're more focused on actually having regular confession over the regular celebration of Mass, because you can find that anywhere. Really, you can. Thanks be to God. And things in England are definitely a lot smaller. We kind of our parishes are probably kind of small communities, and our deaneries are the kind of size of parishes compared to America. So you'd be able to get daily Mass somewhere in every one of those cities, I'd say, every day. Even if you're working full time, you might find a early Mass somewhere or an evening Mass within an hour's drive. Not a problem. So, but we thought actually the celebration of the Sacrament of Reconciliation is a bit harder to find.
Sure.
And so, as you say, having that time of in Holy Hour to actually where the Lord kind of just stirs on your heart is great, to just be able to have confession available straight away. And there's never been a time in the 2 years across the 3 sites where we're now kind of gathering, where at one of the sessions the priest has been there, sat for the whole time, and nobody's come in. So very important, the clerical role. One of the things when I was chatting it through with our bishop about this and how we're developing and the fact that we wanted to work together, he was like, said, "Oh, where does this sit? Does this sit as a vocations project? Is this a young adult, a adult formation project? Where is it?" And we've kind of, I think it's been quite good because we've known each other for a few years, that it comfortably floats between the two. So I've seen my role, which hopefully I'll be passing on soon, because we've just gone to advert for taking on somebody full time to expand the ministry. but very much the spade work of everything, the sending out the emails, booking the speakers, the making sure the churches are set up, and then because our two priests, both of them are in very active parishes as well as their diocesan role, involved in schools and all sorts of hospital rotas. Right. So the fact that they don't have to think about those things that can turn up is fantastic, really. So we work really well together in that. In our so that was kind of mainly in Nottingham, and they've got the overall kind of chaplain role to the ministry, really. So they always make sure they're present on the pilgrimages or on the retreats. And then when we got going, it was great because a priest in the neighbouring city of Derby had heard great things about what we're doing from parishioners who were coming across, and said, "Can we set up a group in Derby?" And we were like, "Yeah, let's give it a go." And it started really small, about a handful, maybe 6 or 7 young adults come in. And then we then had that just grew so quickly, and it really took off. And he's a real passionate support. He got given an extra parish, so we're using like the city centre parish, even though it wasn't his. So he was coming across to support it, and he was given a second parish to look after, which was just outside the city centre. And he was like, "Let's make this like a base." So we had it was easier to kind of like trying to get hold of keys and things like that. It very much felt like a real home for us there. And then a similar thing happened after about 6 months, maybe less than that, of the Derby one going. I got a call from a priest I knew who just moved to a parish in Leicester, which is about 15 miles, maybe 20 miles south of Nottingham. And he'd heard about the great things we're doing, and he was wanting to kind of get it going in Leicester. So we got a group of people. He found some people together to kind of be like a kind of organising group, and we started that last month. And we've got so that was one of those things where you just like praying, like, "Lord, please somebody turn up." But the Holy Spirit's really been at work, that we've been invited into places. We've not had to kind of really push. And what we're seeing now, like the Leicester group's just started, the Derby group is definitely more settled, and the Nottingham group is now wanting to go deeper than just a monthly gathering of prayer, and which is important, but actually kind of real deep formation, more than you can get in a half an hour, 45-minute talk, really. So that's where we've been delighted that the diocese has and the finance committee in the diocese has responded to the growth and put up a full-time position. So we're going to give it a go for 2 years and see if we can go to that. So it's the big thing for me will be a bit like for Father Neil and Father Liam, our vocation directors, of letting go and letting that person run with it, setting our kind of strategic aim, what we're looking for, but then trusting the person we appoint to be able to get on with it, really. So we're very lucky that there's been really positive relations with the clergy in our diocese.
That's amazing, Joe. Unified front is crucial here. And I don't think I would say we have that in Cleveland for sure, but the dynamic's different in that this, the young adult ministry, opportunities are, I don't want to say saturated, but they're plentiful. So, but they're very grassroots. There's a couple, I would say maybe there used to be actually the diocesan initiatives for young adult ministry. They're hit or miss, which is fine. They support in the way that they should, in my opinion. They really do give us the support that we require in order to be successful. But the dynamic isn't like that, where they are coming to our aid and, they give us all the resources we need in terms of clergy. They give us some of that. I don't want to say that they're not.
Yeah.
But it sounds like everybody's unified over there. And it kind of gives me hope for, other dioceses. They catch wind of young adult ministry being like this new thing, sort of, which it is. It's like, there's a gap almost everywhere you go. Cleveland being the exception. So it's just we find ourselves in a position to have to sell ourselves to the diocese, at least we did early on, in terms of getting support and all that stuff. And they were willing to do it for sure. But yeah, a little difference there. Did you have something to say?
I guess it's a more practical side question. When you help these priests set up, what does that actually look like? Like, what are you doing? What are they doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, and definitely a point about about the kind of role of the diocese compared to kind of like grassroots. First, from that point, for myself and for many of my friends from university and so on, who and actually a lot of the guys involved with the organising of this across the diocese, the majority of our formation have come from lay ministries outside the diocese structures. Got some great ones: U2000, the Charismatic Renewal, Latin Mass Society. They're really fantastic. They have festivals, retreats, and things like that have really kind of helped people encounter Christ and the beauty of the Catholic Church. And that's not really done on a parish level. So when I came into my role with Parish Renewal, so central to it, I was aware that a lot of the people who were on fire and faith with the diocese, well, sometimes, which is not fair to say of all, definitely say, but sometimes almost in spite of their parish experience, not because of their parish experience. And bringing this across to the young adult ministry is that I didn't want to make this a little kind of silo away from parishes. So one of the big things that we committed to was that we wouldn't do things on Sundays. We wouldn't have a young adult mass like regularly. We have once a year for Christ the King Sunday, which I'm not sure if it's the same in the States, but that's known as National Youth Sunday in the UK. And so the bishop invites young adults from Cross Diocese to the cathedral. He always has done since he was made bishop about 8 years ago now, to celebrate mass with him and join him for a pint. And so one thing I thought, if I want priests to be on side, I don't want to decimate their leaders. I don't want to take away their if they might be leading the music in their parish or their parish MC, parish catechist. I don't want to be seen to be in opposition to them or of a kind of a rival. So we're very much committed that what we do midweek or we do on a Saturday, so that the Sunday experience, we're encouraging people to engage with the parish. Regarding sorry, Xavier, your question there, it's just slipped my mind.
It's just more of like the on the ground practical work of when a priest.
Oh yeah, what it looks like.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah. So what I've kind of said when priests contacted me, said like, this sounds good. How do we get it going here? And I said, well, we need three things. We need a church where we can meet, and that even simple things of like, you're going to turn the heating on for us. We had one of the first time trying to work out how to turn on a parish heating, which is not when you got people coming out on a rainy November night, and the kind of way it's actually warmer outside. So that we've got a church that we can regularly use, and secondly that we'll have a local priest, because sometimes if Father Neil or Father Liam can't come across, who's going to be a kind of support as well. And then the third thing, or four things actually, I just remember the fourth one. Third thing, that he will point me towards young adults in the area who he knows, who think will be interested in, even if it's just a commitment of the first 6 sessions, helping organise it. Maybe somebody to play guitar, or somebody who can help welcome people, or just come up with ideas about talks they'd like to hear. And then the fourth thing is a local pub that they can promise me there's somewhere nearby that we can socialise afterwards, which I think is often very key. Really, that they've got the opportunity to kind of it's not a drinking club, that's for certain. It's not a big alcohol heavy, but the fact that we've got somewhere where we can relaxed environment, where we can sometimes share a meal or just have a quick drink before heading off because we've got work in the morning. That we've got the opportunity to to socialize afterwards and grow the community. The bit of a kind of tagline I've given to our young adult ministry is to grow in holiness and to grow in community. And that's the aim, really. So I say if you can provide those things, will make everything else happen, really. And I've been very blessed that has happened, and that people, young adults, have responded to it and come along, because if they didn't turn up, it'd be a waste of time, really. And that they've seen that this is something that they're going to invest their time in is so important.
Sure.
Yeah, I really like getting your perspective on from sort of the helping from above view. I also, just side note, it's always kind of funny when sometimes people bring up the bar or pub thing, and we're like, when we sat down, we were like, where can we go that's a public space that's open in the evening, and bars are the only answer. And it's like, oh, you guys you're going to the bar. It's like, well, what are we going to do? Go to the park? It's dark.
Yeah.
It's cold.
Yeah, especially because in our Derby group, we have a lot of international students where particularly this is seen as a bit of a kind of a cultural taboo. So we've tried to kind of adapt that, and we're very lucky to say in Derby that the parish centre connects to the church, and a couple of the parish priests let us have full reign of it. We'll occasionally use that to try and put people a little bit more at ease. But you're right, it's I remember when I left high school, my brother saying to me, like, this is what you're going to face now is like this a hard moment of whenever you want to meet up with your friends, it's going to cost you. Because you're going to either have to go to a bar or to a restaurant or to like a coffee shop, and you haven't got just the kind of free spirit of just being able to hang out somewhere together. And I'm like, so yeah, it's one of those things, really. Hopefully, there's a great ministry in Sheffield, which is the neighbouring diocese to us, where they've got a mission hub for young adults. So it's a site that was left in a legacy to the diocese with the aim that it had to be used towards either university or young adult ministry. So some of the land was sold off, where the university built halls of residence, and then in the middle of it is this little Catholic church with a centre attached, which have like a coffee shop, and the idea of it is a space for young adults to meet and to kind of come to know the Lord. So that's my dream. Just need a couple of million just kind of for a city centre site, really.
Yeah.
So something like that, where we could just have that available to people day to day would just be incredible.
In our experience, people really enjoy the bar aspect after the meeting, because ours is structured in a similar way. Yeah. But Xavier and I put a particular emphasis on the hanging out at the bar afterward. We really thought that it was a casual setting where people can approach each other in a social sense. And it's not that you can't do that at the meeting, but there's structure to the meeting. There's no real structure to the pub part. So implementing that has really helped the community kind of grow together and develop relationships and that sort of thing. So I think, even though people have to spend a little money, or, some people might not even drink, it's like just the environment has a positive effect on everybody as a whole.
I think one of the great things for us, as you say, is that that relaxed manner is very much when you see about how Jesus approached things. He said, like, when people said, come and eat with me, it was like kind of the relaxed atmosphere. He did the teaching publicly, but he also did the kind of one-to-one, just spending time with people. And you've got the other side of, it's a great witness. Like, we have one priest, Father Liam, he's never out of a cassock. So like he walks into the bar and people stop and look and then ask what's kind of going on. Really, we had one week, I think of the Derby one, where the guy came up to one of the priests and just said, like, just checking this is not like a stag do or like a bachelor party or something like, in fancy dress. And it was just like, no, I'm priest. It was like, can I have a chat? I haven't been to church in years and everything like that. It was kind of a lax Catholic. So kind of off he went to the side, and it's that kind of that witness, really, that he saw a group of very joyful, young adults, about 15, 20 of us, kind of coming in with a couple of priests, relaxed, having a drink, having a laugh, catching up with how everyone is. And there's some great friendships that I've seen form of people get to know each other, meeting outside of the meetings to just do life together, to be friends. And which is, I think, in this age group of, hearing on a podcast the other day, of the highest age group for loneliness now. We often think it might be the elderly, but actually the college age to maybe just young professional there's a great loneliness in society.
That's huge, man. You know, people have this, they think of the church as you got to be in. You definitely have to be like this faithful Catholic who's goes to mass every day or whatever, part of this club in order to engage with it. But when you have a priest come to the pub like that, people are like, wow, you know, this isn't an opportunity that you get every day.
Yeah, two thoughts. I just like that you have it down as a system. You're like, hey, here's the 4 things. Like, if you are a priest, here's the 4 things, and I'll help with the legwork, or as you said, the spade work. And I like that. And I like that one of them is that it sort of offloads the work from one person onto several who have the right place for it. Like, the local priest is the one who's going to know a few local young adults. Maybe they don't have like the skills or experience to start the group or know exactly what to do, but then you come in and you're like, hey, I can have programs for you. I can have guidance. And it's like, just give me some space, give me a couple people, a priest sometimes, and we'll have a group going, and then it works. Which I think is something a lot of priests despair in. They like might try to hire somebody in, or just like sort of hope one day somebody comes up and says, hey, can I start a young adult group? But getting the knowledge that this is actually a pretty easily replicable thing out there is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing we're really keen on is keeping it simple, and also allowing groups to kind of find their own footing of how they do things, and not being set like, if you're going to call it Christus Vivat, it must look exactly like this, because that people have different ways of doing things. As long as there's like a space for kind of prayer, formation, and fellowship, then it's great. Whatever order that's done in is totally up to the groups. They've been very similar so far, but it kind of expands into, as you're saying there, about trying to find people for the right work. Is that what we want to expand? We're hoping of kind of creating a young adult formation program in kind of different kind of pathway of approaching it, but really that we're kind of forming a group in a more intense way than we would do in the kind of meetings, so that we want to get to the point where once a week there is something for somebody in one of our deaneries. So we've got 9 deaneries across the diocese, and we're currently in 3, so we're a third of the way there. But there will be some areas like the Peak District, which is kind of very rural, where people are going to be more spread out, and they haven't got a university base there. They haven't got those things. So we want to be able to build up those city centre groups more, that we can kind of pass on to the local team to run, so that we can focus more on the area where more support is needed. So, as you say, it's like finding the right people for the right roles. And often I think there's a temptation, I'm not sure if it's the same in the States, that unless the priest does it, it doesn't happen. Or unless the priest initiates it, it's not legit. Or even sometimes if the priest doesn't turn up to like a planning or meeting or something, then we can't do anything. We're very lucky that we have priests who've made themselves available, but at the same time, it should be for them that they just rock up, throw a stole on and get in the confessional, or throw on a humoral veil and give us benediction, and then spend time with us and not worry about what time's the speaker arriving, if the microphone set up, what's happening next time, have the emails gone out on our mailing list, and things like that. So allowing priests to be priests and lay people to be lay people.
Right. Like our priest at our parish just got named pastor of 2 other local parishes. Our diocese just got hit with a big wave of retirement from sort of the baby boomer era. And it's like he's already swamped with one pretty decently sized parish. Now he's got 2 more to manage. And it's like, he can't do it. He can show up sometimes, but it's almost like each person involved can have the wrong mindset. Like the priest can have the mindset of like, if I can't do that, so it's not going to happen. And the lay person's like, well, why isn't the priest doing it? It's sort of just flip that, and then it works.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes a lot of the breakdown I've seen kind of parishes where initiatives not happening of everything, if that there's no communication. The priest is swamped by what's going on. He's barely keeping his head above water and trying to be a full-time priest, as you say, in the same way that he always was in one parish, and then he's given two others, one other, and they're trying to be a full-time priest, a full-time pastor to all these people as if they had one parish and two curates with them. And then at the same time, and they're not kind of communicating that, and at the same time, the people aren't communicating what they need and what they want. And so it's great being able to kind of be in a diocesan role where I've got the backing of the bishop and the leadership of the diocese. So I'm presenting something they know it's legitimate, and actually having those conversations of like, this is what we're asking of you, Father. We're not asking you to run this all, but if just keep an eye out for young adults in your parish, point them towards this. And like the group that have just started in Leicester, the parish priest there, I've known him for years, really, and he was my brother's parish priest before he moved. And he found out that when he moved over parish, like soccer group for some young lads in the parish, and he asked them what time they play, and he was like 8:00, and normally our sessions are 6:15 to 8:00. So he said, Joe, I want us to finish 10 minutes before 8. Like just to give 10-15 minutes before 8, just so that I've got 5 lads who've said they're definitely going to come. Sometimes they can have like 30-35 lads turn up to this parish football. So if we have those 5 lads still being able to get to their football on time, next time they'll bring another 5 with them, because they'll go, actually, you can do both. You can come to this and you can still go and play football.
Yeah.
So so that's really, really helpful of actually knowing what the priest can do and what we can do, and doing it.
So, hypothetically and perhaps inevitably, you will, at least the goal is to continue to, you go into those, what'd you call them? You're in 3 of the 9 what?
Deaneries. So,
deaneries, yeah.
Like, I'm not sure if it's structured the same. So, like, there'll be a collection of parishes in a kind of local area, kind of overseen by a dean.
Right.
And the idea of kind of getting the parishes to work together more and kind of spreading out the responsibility.
Right. So the goal is to get in all 9, and once you are in all 9, and a couple years pass, and I'm talking, years and years from now. Everybody who's in the age group of young adult will and wants to participate in young adult formation will be in there already. So it kind of begs the question: what happens when these people age out? The influx of younger people coming into young adult formation is definitely a priority at that point, I would say, and perhaps based on our last conversation, maybe it's a priority for you now. You said you have a strong connection to the local university around there. Yeah, how do you reach out to them?
Absolutely, this is something that's definitely, I'm really beginning to see what our kind of first group that's only into its 3rd year, if that we had some people in their mid to late 20s who were just married or like just about to get married, and now 2-3 years down the line, they're now kind of expecting children, and if coming out on a weeknight is not going to be so easy, but they're still in our kind of age bracket of young adults of 18 to 35, and they're then going to go back to how it was 2-3 years ago, where they don't feel maybe well connected or well supported. And so I would say having those in those areas, but those kind of start to kind of graduate the top end, because there's such an age gap in between 18 and 35. In fact, that's based around the World Youth Day kind of age group. You could consider actually that's a 17-year age gap. That's like basically double the age. You've got people at the top end who could be parents to the ones at the bottom end.
Uh-huh.
And so we're trying to establish, once we've got this young adult ministry lead person in role, is that we develop a network for young parents. So we talk about often in the church young families where we're focusing on what there is for children, but actually, if someone have gone and got married in their early 20s and everything like that, they may find that those who are in fellow kind of parent groups that are much older than they are, or that the other parents in the church are kind of more well established, maybe in their late 30s or 40s. And so we want to be able to kind of bring those together. And so they've got support. I'm not sure that might look like. It'll probably be less frequent. It may be 4 or 5 times a year, if that. And really looking at how we can kind of support them in that role. The key thing I would say is to be looking to continually add to our kind of leadership team, that they if new people come through and show potential, that kind of they're brought in, so we don't have suddenly a kind of cliff edge when someone leaves, that we've got continuous succession planning. But yeah, something that we've begun to identify right now, really, that we need to be thinking ahead of, right, especially some of those who might be involved with, especially the one in Derby, with quite a few who are university students. They're coming to the end of their degree now, and they could go anywhere. They might stay in the city, but they might go back home to where they came from originally, or they might go somewhere else because that's where the work is. So if a constant spotting new people, and it wouldn't happen, I think, in a parish context of much of where you might be in a parish 3 or 4 years before you kind of even involved in kind of a ministry. Some people might jump in straight away, but the fact you might go from getting involved in ministry and 6 months later might be on the organising group is quite big. But I think that's what it has to be done, really, of kind of spotting who are the people who look really committed, who are really actually getting so much from this, because they're going to be the easy ones to say yes to being part of expanding it, really. And at the same time, what is it that next age group in the young adult bracket needs? They're not going to need a kind of a Thursday night talk and a pub visit, but they might need a Saturday morning something else, or they might need a session where you're bringing in people to kind of put on a creche, so the two of them can sit together and actually have a conversation or pray together. So it'll be, if I'm really excited about, I've got so many beseeching the Holy Spirit and every saint in heaven that we get someone who will really be able to bring a creative and engaging insight into this about how we reach even more young adults in the diocese, because I know we're barely scratching the surface of those who are out there, really.
Is there something already in place for the next level, young adult young families ministry of sorts?
Yeah, so we've there's a thing called Teams of Our Lady. I'm not sure if that's across in the States. I'm not actually sure where it came from originally. I think it might be French, which is an opportunity for couples to Catholic couples to meet together and kind of discuss and share their faith, kind of like small groups. That's something that we're currently trying to bring into the diocese. I would say we find that those who are at the kind of top age bracket range are normally kind of single. So there isn't, the Christus Vivat gatherings are a bit kind of one size fits all, which is not quite the case. So we're very much at the beginning point, kind of looking at what that could look like and what it might need to look like. And I know myself, I'm now 33, and I really do feel a bit like kind of the old man in the room when some of the kind of 19-year-old and 20-year-olds join us.
Sure.
So at the same time, we kind of want to encourage them to have a bigger role in their parish. But again, if the peer-to-peer ministry is so important, that it's good to have cross-generational ministry, and we do have quite strong men's and women's events that happen twice a year in our diocese, and in some parishes they're expanding that more. But the actual, if you're kind of spending your time at work with people of similar age, but you don't really have someone that's similar to your age to have conversations with about faith, can be very tricky. So that's where we're kind of looking to this role, that we can have somebody who'll have the capacity to take that on and make it what it needs to be.
So during our conversation a couple of weeks ago, you had mentioned on the other end now, when it comes to university outreach and getting people in who are finishing their degree, you had mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, there are less and less people these days going to university, and they just kind of go from high school into trades or wherever the work is at that point. And they're harder to reach, but they're an increasing number. Is there a plan for that over there in your diocese, or is that still kind of a mystery for you?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's definitely, I've seen it that the cost of university degrees are just skyrocketing. I say that in the UK, like nothing compared to what you guys face in the States. Like we get government loans and everything that like you pay back about 20 quid a month for when you start earning. So yeah, like and I think if something like after 25 years, if you've not paid it back, it just gets wiped away. So it's so we've got nothing to complain about compared to the States.
Sure.
When I think yeah, so but it's still for a lot of people, they look at it and say like, how is that going to make me more employable? And so there've been a lot more young adults kind of going into apprenticeships straight from school or just into the workplace. And they're definitely much harder to identify than university students. Because we have university, we have campus ministry where we can kind of, that's an inlay into them. They might be less connected to their parish. If often we can sometimes be a bit elitist in our formation, that we're hitting the kind of the middle classes, in the kind of like the university educated, or kind of rather than kind of actually reaching those across all walks of life. So there needs to be something in particular of how do we reach these people? How do we reach? And I've got to say, I think our group in Leicester might be the best way for us to kind of approach that a bit more. As we are finding in that group that there are, in the parish that it's based in, we've got a huge community of people in a real high immigration area where university isn't as widely gone on to. So the fact that they're still connected to the parish is kind of key thing. So that's why I'm amazed in our first meeting we didn't have any students at all. So many people working or kind of just left school. So that if as you say, it's still a bit of a mystery. But for identifying that we don't lose these people, as you say, particularly those who kind of go into trade, there's still a kind of, particularly among young men, a kind of stigma of kind of like that these are the kind of rough and ready guys. These are the ones who maybe might not be open to kind of prayer, which is not the case at all. Like when I think about my parents and grandparents' generation, like they went onto the building site for their rosaries and their miraculous medals, and they stopped at 12 for the Angelus and kind of the Irish workers. And so it's definitely something that probably is a generational change, and we do need to do more on. So if anybody listening to this podcast has the answer, please do hit me up because I want to know it.
Yeah, I think about that too, and I think it's one of those things, part of why we have this podcast and we started the whole website in the first place was just to get it into the zeitgeist that young adult ministry and groups and friendships and life in a parish as a young adult is a thing. I think most places that are, have a parish that's been around or a diocese that exists, not necessarily mission territory kind of thing. People know what youth ministry is. People know there's the men's groups and like the older people's rosary groups, but it just doesn't even occur to anyone that young adult ministry is a thing or that you can go to a young adult group. And I think the more we do this and sort of just get it into culture at every level of Catholic life, that like you go to your youth group, you go to your high school group, and maybe your university group, and then you got the young adult group. Like it's just there, and people know about it. Because other than that, it's pretty much just like peer-to-peer word of mouth is really the only way, unless we want, like, we've tried Instagram ads before with not much success, but we didn't, like, it's just sort of local to the town.
How could you know? Yeah.
I'm like, people click on it or tap on it, but so far no one's come up and, like, when I ask how'd you hear about us, they're like, oh, I saw an Instagram ad, but we didn't really put that much
and the money you
in
spend
either.
on it, you're like, I definitely agree with that. If say getting into the zeitgeist, getting into the kind of the culture that this is possible. It reminds me, I was saying to my wife recently, the lady leads our parish music group. Her youngest child just went off to university, and I was like, oh, hold on, when I joined the parish, he was really young. Yeah, I think he'd like just made the first Holy Communion. I thought, and then I'm working out her age, and I was like, that means when I joined the parish of this age, it's about 2-3 years older than I am now, and she's already established in the parish as the person who leads music. Oh, there's more I should be doing, really. At my age, I'm kind of I need to do it more. So yeah, absolutely, we kind of see that those kind of roles, those kind of things in the parish. That's for the proper grown-ups, if you will, really. Like when we get to that age, you're there, and I think actually, often these groups were started by people when they were in their 20s or in their 30s, in the parish.
Is there? I just had this thought about young adult ministry coming into you said the zeitgeist. At least in Cleveland, there were attempts at it before. Particularly, I think in our region, it was in the 90s or the early 2000s. There were groups around that since don't exist. Was there any attempts before? And it's basically yes or no. I mean, you could expand on it if you'd like, Joe. But in our case, those people simply just grew out of it. They found the leaders specifically of those groups. They found a spouse, and they just didn't want to have a Thursday gathering and a pub session afterward. So it's not like this stuff hasn't been tried before, but I think perhaps now, and we're trying to usher in this new era where it's going to last. Has that been tried before over there? Where in recent past?
The only thing I'm kind of really aware of is those something I think of quite big across the UK, really, called Young Christian Workers. And it was aimed, very similar actually. When you're talking, it came back to me. I was like, oh, actually, yeah, that was big in the 80s and kind of pieced away near the end of the 90s.
Yeah.
Where the idea of kind of coming together, prayer, and actually, I think it probably came from the US. I think it was, I've forgotten the name. Dorothy Day. Oh, I got mixed up with the singer. Who kind of very much the idea of coming together to pray, to see, pray, and act was kind of the structure of that led into kind of actual works of service as well. So yeah, that seemed to be something that did die off. So they've always that could happen. But yeah, definitely for my generation, by the time my generation of kind of hitting late teens, 18, there was nothing that you could see to be out there, with the exception of the lay movements or like national stuff, but not on a kind of diocese or parish level.
Sure. And I guess as just shifting gears again, just to kind of cover the notes that I took during our conversation. So more internal in terms of retention, because in our ministry, Xavier and I, we've had plenty of people come, maybe, for a meeting or two, but they just don't come back, and it'd be safe to say, I mean, they probably have their own reasons that kind of are out of our control, but we have our methods of trying to keep people in the loop and, somewhat try to reach out to them again after they haven't come in a while, that sort of thing. But you had mentioned your calling or your goal with your ministry is to set hearts on fire. If you can you expand upon what that like the ethos of that idea is and how you kind of go about it?
Yeah, I suppose it kind of comes to a bit of my own kind of faith story, really, because I think there's a lot that we do with Catholics that sometimes is promoted by Catholic guilt. Like, oh, we've got a canonical obligation to go to mass on Sunday, so it better make sure we're there. And sometimes we kind of drag ourselves there, and we're not mentally, or our hearts aren't there really. But I know myself where actually that when my heart's really into something, that it's really that the sacrifice of the Sunday morning lie-in or whatever it may be, if nothing, it's like saying like a sacrifice of having to open my mouth to breathe is such a hard work. So I think that's the key thing really, is that this, for having a continual thing for like young adults might feel, I should probably go to that because if I am a young adult and kind of come along, and then it gets to this time of year, November, December, and it's raining and it's cold and they've just had a hard day at work and they've got to go out again. It's kind of, they have to really have a great love for it to go. So if breaking through those kind of barriers that we place before the Lord, really give an opportunity for true encounters. So that's why we're very keen on having retreats regularly. If it's just a retreat day or a pilgrimage, because these are real moments where you're taken out of your usual environment and you have an opportunity to let the Lord in, to let Christ look upon you and you to look upon him. I've seen it where we had a group for the first time in about 15 years go to World Youth Day. Wow. And they came back, like we had 20 of them, and they were just absolutely on fire. Their WhatsApp group still 3-4 months later, it's still firing messages, seeing how they all are and everything, of having had that experience. So I'm a big believer in kind of events, pilgrimages and retreats. Obviously, you can't live on the mountaintop moment, so there've got to be things to kind of follow up, but we do, all of us kind of get dragged down by the kind of day-to-dayness of life. So I think that's really key. Another area which I think will always keep our hearts on fire is opportunity of service. Something that Mother Teresa really spoke about, if there's in service that we find that we go out. I know Pope Francis spoke this especially in his exhortation on holiness, that we go out to the peripheries of society to bring the Lord, but actually we find the Lord there present already. And we've got one of our groups tonight, and we've got a guy who leads a local Christian homeless charity speaking to us. And that's another area that I want to develop, but actually how we call a young adult into service of the poor, of the marginalised, and that will set their hearts ablaze really for the Lord by actually putting their love into action. So I think those kind of key things to keep we have in England an MOT, which is an annual test your car has to go through to just make sure everything's running. So if like the kind of the MOT of our faith, we fill up each week at the petrol station in our parish, and then once a year at least we should be kind of going for a good kind of like check over, either on pilgrimage or retreat, to make sure that those bits that we don't check, the tire pressures or the I'm really stretching this analogy with the car now, but they kind of like change the oil and everything so that we run well, because the day-to-day kind of being a Catholic in the world, the pressures of work, of family, of trying to be a good son or daughter, friend, that we kind of get a bit kind of lose sight of things. So having opportunity where people can go regularly on pilgrimage and just dedicate a couple of days, a week, to being with Christ, or a retreat day, can do wonders.
That's huge, man. I think that's a great, that analogy is spot on. I think just giving them the structure in order to succeed. You know, you don't have to go to the MOT. You know, but you're kind of, especially as being part of a community, and if you're bought in somewhat, and your friends are doing their due diligence and taking advantage of these opportunities, and you maybe even begrudgingly go, to the quote unquote MOT. You're going to get something out of it because you've made it so. You as the leader have made the opportunity available. It's like if they partake, they might as well get something out of it. Like I think we're naturally inclined to, make the most of our situation. At least most of us are. So I think that's a really good structure, man. Something, a lot of food for thought for us. Yeah.
And we're kind of coming up on an hour here, so I just want to ask you sort of a few questions we pretty much ask everybody. First off, what was one of the biggest mistakes you made that you wouldn't want other people to make early on when you were just sort of finding your way?
A great question. I think probably before we started this, particularly in adult ministry, one of the big mistakes we made was when I talked about one of the times we did that failed, we did we had a second on our second gatherings, like meetings, was on the December in December, which most people have payday and we had a really low attendance, and we just went, maybe people aren't interested. And I found in every time we've launched one of these, probably with the exception of the Bible, whenever we launch something like this, the first week is always the most popular, or the first session is always the most popular. The second one is always the least popular. I don't know what it is. It's just kind of like third, it kind of picks up by the fourth or fifth into a bit of a rhythm then, really. But I think not to be disheartened by low numbers on the second or third time, to kind of commit. And with the first one, also not to be set your stall out by what you get at the first one, because some people just come to see it's new and it might not be for them at all. And kind of with that really is to always be pointing to what's next, because we missed that a few times when we first got going with our first group, if that we didn't know what the next thing was going to be, because we're like, we've got a month to organise it. Whereas actually now we're trying to be 2 or 3 months down the line, so we can go, all right, this is happening next month. We're going to be here on this day, on this another event maybe that's happening that you can get involved with. So people are leaving already knowing that what the next thing is. And then it's a case of then, rather than kind of it's just a case of reminding really, with our kind of advertising through email, through WhatsApp, through social media, that we've got a continual structure, we know, or pathway that we know what's happening. So I think, making sure you're thinking 3 or 4 sessions down the line is really key, and not getting too caught up on numbers, really.
And last question, what's something that you're glad you did in the early going, that some wisdom you want to impart on the listener here?
That I didn't go with my first idea. So when we got myself, Father Neil and Father Liam got the kind of young outs together, I presented this idea of I'm going to have talk's going to go like this, this and this, and it's going to be like this, and then it's got to go like this, and then it's got to go like that. And then I kind of looked, and a few people were like, yeah, that's kind of okay. And I've spent 3 months praying, thinking about this, and I'm certain this is what it is. And one of the big things I've tried to do now when I go into a meeting is want to have my mind changed about something. And what we came out with at the end of that meeting was much better than what I'd kind of planned on my own. So always want to have plans ripped apart, because the Lord speaks to us in different ways.
Right.
And we can sometimes get really caught up with our own idea that becomes about us rather than about Jesus. Mm-hmm. So presenting an idea and want it to be ripped apart, because it will only be ripped apart. Hope if you've got the right people in the room. You don't want the naysayers who just go, no, it's rubbish. Who are going to give it constructive and make it better, because you can't be a perfectionist on your own, but together you can get a bit closer.
Mm-hmm. And then part 2 of the last question, any advice for priests out there who want to have a group but have no idea where to start?
Firstly, pray. I've always my first bit of advice. Pray and ask Christ to reveal who your Timothy is going to be. I've kind of used that term for St. Paul and Timothy. Who's the person who's going to support you in this ministry? Then invest time in them. I kind of really speak about how this is something that you'd really love to see, that going to ask them to kind of support, and then ask them to support in a particular way. So if you have somebody in your parish who's a really good musician and say, we're going to do this event, what I want you to do is really just give us the best music that we can have at it. Or if there's somebody who is a really good people person, but like really want you to kind of take on the welcome. And then if you've got one part of the evening that you, even or the ministry that you don't have to think about, you can fully invest in that person to kind of lead and run. That's one less thing to do. And then more and more people will come forward. So I'd say pray for guidance, entrust, and then also thank if the big one. Like was really lovely after our first year, when the priest Father Liam just threw a big barbecue for us, and said like we're supposed to have a meeting. I don't have to have a meeting. I want us just to have some time together, the kind of leadership group, to give thanks to God for what we've done, and just have some really nice burgers.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, Joe, for spending the time to talk to us and sharing the insights that sound pretty hard-won.
Thank you.
Anyone who might happen to be in your area, can you just share how to find you or get a hold of your groups?
Absolutely. If you go to our website, the Diocese website, diocesenottingham.uk, you should be able to see some information there. You can also find us on Facebook and X, I think it's now, rather than Twitter, and Instagram under Christus Vivat Notts or Nottingham, which so that's Christ US and then VIVIT, and you'll find us that way. Or if you bang it into Google, hopefully it will come up as well.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone listening. I hope you have a great day, and God bless.
God bless. Thank you, everyone.
We hope you were inspired by this podcast, and we encourage you to share it on social media and warmly invite you to distribute our Catholic scapulars, medals, books, and booklets to your family, friends, parish, and social groups. Visit us online at Catholicity.com for more information. The real work of the Mary Foundation is accomplished by people just like you. There are 3 ways to help. First, please pray for everyone who hears, reads, or wears our materials. Second, share them with everyone you know, family, friends, fellow parishioners, and the people you work with. Only you can reach them. Finally, please help us financially. It seems impossible, but we don't do traditional fundraising here at the Mary Foundation. We rely on your generosity and God's providence. By the way, if you, your parish, or your Catholic group would like to distribute our materials by the dozens, hundreds, or even thousands, all we ask for is help covering our materials costs. So please visit us online for suggested donations. For our Canadian friends and those outside the United States, only online requests are accepted, so please refer to the special shipping rates listed on our website. Thanks for listening, and we're looking forward to working with you. May God bless you always. And now, here's a short preview of our Rosary and Divine Mercy Chaplet, the most popular rosary recording in the history of the world.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
For an increase in the virtues of faith, hope, and charity. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
All rights are reserved, and any duplication without permission is prohibited.